Hey, you guys. Hi. Um, so welcome. I want to welcome everybody that's here, but also people that get to watch this over the next little while. So we're Monday nights. We're meeting here at 7 o'clock on Monday evenings to go over the same thing over and over again. In a way, yes. In a way, it's the same thing over and over again. And I think my experience is that for this to be of any value, we have to be convinced of a couple of things. Otherwise, it really, well, the community's nice, but I think if we're not convinced of a couple of things, then there would be really no sense in doing this or coming or watching and I think they're really simple things. The two really simple things that I think we have to be convinced of, or is that there is I don't know what to call it, a power in the universe. There is and it's the more I have been trying to share what that is, the more I realize I have no idea what that is. And I won't say that, but but there is something, and there's been a million concepts of to help us see this something. In Christianity, we have, a bunch of concepts even in Christianity with Jesus and God, and so that we can believe in something, and in Zen, we have concepts. In Buddhism, there's concepts. In Hinduism, there's multiple gods, and many of them with stories around them. And Eckhart Tolle talks about the power of now. And how many have read Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now? So many of us. And he says that in the moment is where we meet with the power. So I think that it's important that we be convinced that having a connection with that power, whatever that power is, or with the essence of the moment, even if there can't be, even saying it's a power is maybe too much, but that there's a stillness or a silence or a peace or a serenity or we can call it love in that moment. And I think that for many of us, we get to a place in our lives where we're just tired of trying to figure it out on our own and trying to run the show. So it's many of us get to a place where we say, well, fuck, this is not working. I've done everything they told me. I went to university. Well, I didn't, but I got a job, I got married, I had children. I've done everything they said, and I still feel like something's missing. So my purpose or vision, or why we're doing this, is to help us to recognize, and this is the second thing I think we have to be convinced of, recognize the things that are blocking us from connecting with that power greater than ourselves. So that universal intelligence, that the quantum field, there just goes on and on, the names of this thing, the one that we have for it. And Jay, are you in yet? No. Are you coming? Will you close the door when you come? Yeah, thanks. So the most of what we're going to do, and I plan to, I don't know, as long as, I think maybe this may be all I do for the next 10 years, in a way, is to help us see how our beliefs or our judgments or our fears or our complaint and keep us from connecting. it's very hard to see ourselves, and to once we do see ourselves, there's very little instruction on how do we surrender or release that thing that we're seeing, without making ourselves wrong or bad or without condemning or judging ourselves, and recognizing, having compassion for our own behaviors, our own beliefs, because how the heck could we not have, be who we are? We've been mostly brought up in a very conditioned society, and a lot of our conditioning has been fear-based, and a lot of our conditioning has been to not trust, don't talk to strangers, right? And not to love, be careful. Gosh, can't trust men, certainly can't trust women, and all of that stuff that many of us have been brought up with, and by well-meaning people who loved us, but were brought up that way themselves, and so a lot of fear-based stuff that we've been conditioned in, and so that's the journey, is to let's look at those things. And I thought tonight we'd talk a bit about relationship, and see if there's anything real in the room, and see if we can pull out a few pieces that that are real for us. I think that we can look at as where did a belief come into that? Where did a preconceived idea come into that? My experience is that when we have this connection, and we recognize that we don't know, that from our small position, we're unable to really have a big picture. And so we need that connection to have the big picture. And when we have that big picture, then all of a sudden we don't need anybody. We can be alone at perfect peace. We can lose our fear of financial, financial insecurity. We don't need to be in a relationship. And has anybody ever, I don't know how I'll word this. I was going to say, ever felt like you needed to be in a relationship? Yes. Not the rest of you. And Dana, never you? No. Has anybody ever dated somebody who you found out later really needed you? And you're thinking, how can I lose this guy? And you know what I mean? And so it happens, we're kind of disconnected. And so my goal this year, I don't, I think it's unfair in a way for, or certainly out of my league, to present any particular concept of that power that I'm speaking of. Tell them we'll call them back. We're high tech here. For those of you that are watching, we're on my iPhone, and every once in a while it rings, because both James and I forgot to put it on airplane mode tonight. Anyway, is it still running? Good. So whoever's calling, call back later. Anyway, where was I? So that's the deal, that, the two things I think that are really important is that we need to have that connection, and there's a ton of ways of opening that connection up. One is through meditation and through stillness. I was listening to Alan Watts the other day. I love Alan Watts, not just his voice, but he talked about meditation. He said, if you're meditating to get something, forget it. Because really we're meditating to get nothing. The road to nowhere. And So it was interesting because there's books on meditation around all the benefits of meditation, and basically Alan says the purpose of meditation is no purpose, to drop into nothingness and to connect with that nothingness, and out of the nothingness comes all knowledge, all comes the intuitive thought, comes the connection, the God consciousness, and out of the nothingness. But our mind wants to understand, or make meaning. I say that we're magical meaning-making machines, and we're always making meaning, and making meaning is judging. So if it was something good happened, we make, wow, this is why this happened, and this came along to help me in my purpose or my goals. And something bad happened, maybe I'm going the wrong direction. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I should be doing. And so we're always doing that, and that's like hardwired. To the possibility of getting past that is amazing. I mean, there's one way that we're going to get past it is to become aware of it, that we're doing it. And the other, of course, is that the more we connect with the source, the more we recognize that we don't know, that we're in a possible place of responding to life, or being available for life, life on life's terms in each moment. And my experience is that's when true freedom comes in. When we're like, I don't have to do anything. I'm free, or I have the possibility to be free in each moment. So that's the deal. We're going to look at some stuff, but I thought we'd meditate for a little bit and kind of just drop in and over and over again. As we're doing this more, and I talk to people, and what I get is that there's so many of us have a struggle with meditation. We're like, I can't. If it's really difficult, we have to do more. And it's kind of humor, but yes, just to go deeper into the time and spend, drop into it. So I have a couple of tips around meditation, and I'm just going to share them with you briefly. That one is with the mind. Be nice to it. It's a tool. It served us. It works for us. Somehow it got in charge, and it's not going to be happy about not being in charge. And it does resist a bit. Call it mind, call it ego, call it self. So I have this idea that you can actually speak to it like it was a child or a pet. Just be kind and tell it that it's okay. We're just going to take a few minutes. Just relax. We're going to meditate. You're okay, and just try that, to recognize that. And the other thing is that with the thoughts, when they come, just drop into our breath. Just, when we're in the breath, we're in the moment. The breath brings us here now. And it's crazy. I don't know about you guys, but when I'm dropping into the breath, and sometimes I'm looking to see what can I see in the moment, and as soon as I'm acknowledging something or seeing something, then I'm out of it. I'm back into thought. So, or as soon as I'm looking, I'm into thought. So anyway, just the breath will bring us back into the moment, and we'll just keep practicing that. Watch the thoughts, recognize that they'll sometimes come up with really important things like, I have to go to the bathroom, and it's only 10 minutes, or my God, I don't think I locked the car, and stuff like that. We'll be convinced, I'm not going to be able to pay the rent, whatever. My thoughts often go over relationship, food, money, things. It's kind of and it just runs around, and so just say thank you, and let it drop down. Alan said the other day, I was listening to him, and he said, imagine that the thoughts were like birds chirping outside the window. And you can hear them, but they're just there. And so we don't need to do anything with them. I think we'll just meditate for a while. If you guys want to join us, we'll find a comfortable space with, as kind of open as possible. Whether, if your legs across, that's super. If you're sitting and your legs across, that's super. But just to be open and just take a few deep breaths, come into our body. Just remember that the breath brings us into the space. I'm just going to say a few words to bring us into our body a little bit, just to acknowledge our feet and bring our attention into our feet, into our legs. As we breathe, kind of imagine the oxygen into our blood, and the blood flowing with the oxygen into our feet and into our legs. And we're just conscious of our knees and our thighs. Just bring our attention down into our hips and our sphincter. Just be in your butt. Feel it. Feel your spine and the energy flowing up your spine. Breathe into your belly again. Just feel your belly expanding and contracting. Feel the breath in your lungs. And bring your energy into your shoulders. Just relax your shoulders a bit. Just let them drop. Totally in your body now. Totally in your heart. Feel your heart pumping blood. Just imagine as we pump into our body that we illuminate. Just feel ourselves being illuminated. Feel the energy flow up your neck, into your head. Just relax your jaw. We hold lots of tension and attitude in our jaws, defense in our jaws. Just let it go. Just drop it. Just for a minute, feel the energy coming out through the top of your head. Just feel it lifting up above you and then kind of falling down all around you. This beautiful, effervescent energy. We're in our bodies. We're in our breath. Now, just drop deep down inside. Just be with the breath. Allow ourselves to just disappear. Remember, if thoughts come, be gentle with them. We just tell them we're safe. We'll be back in a bit. Just come back when you're ready. No hurry. Hey, Barbie. More comfortable on the floor? More comfortable on the floor, yeah. So, relationship. You know, I mean, everything is relationship, but let's just explore a little bit around the idea of you know, a primary monogamous relationship. You know, the idea of the one. And I say it with a little bit of humor because in my experience, we've been pretty heavily conditioned, you know, by Barbie and Ken, and seriously, and what was the English story of the I'm thinking of, you know, maidens in distress stories that we've heard, and our whole idea around relationship is Cinderella. You know, it is like, oh my God, you know, and we've been, since we were really young, you know, Disney just gave us a whole idea of how life should be, right? And so, you know, we don't know. We think that it's going to be that way, and damn it, you know, often doesn't work out that way. Does anybody had it work out that way? No. So I think it's important to talk about it because it, in some ways, there's there's disappointment. There's like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm almost 40, and it didn't, you know, what's going to happen, and because our expectations. We've been conditioned to have these expectations, and you know, so we can then get caught in disappointment and grief and anger around things that we thought were supposed to happen because, you know, along with some other stories like Santa Claus, we were told that this is the way it's going to happen, and I'll tell you, not everybody wants to let that go. You know. It's a tough one. It's like, are you kidding? I don't want to hear that shit. Don't tell me that, David. But what if we were available to live in the moment and live in love, and if we had a relating with somebody that was really moment to moment, wasn't based on a contract. You know, if we could risk living that way. The truth is we don't have any choice, because that is what it is. But our conditioning has told us that, you know, all these stories about how it was supposed to be. So, has anybody have any, you know, is anything going on in the relating area that's, you know, that's maybe slightly distressing or disappointing or exciting? Because, I mean, I was addicted for the first, you know, I used to love the first 6 months of a relationship. and I moved several times, you know, from and actually it's 6 months are amazing, and it takes a year and a half to get out, right? And anyway, so I've done some of that. I have some experience in this area, and even though in some ways I've known better, you know. So anybody have anything, any juicy, you know, anything to talk about relationship, like, you know, anybody waiting?
I find for myself right now, especially in relationships, there's just a lot more awareness of how, I don't know, like just my need for acceptance really pushed it, or like if I look at every relationship that I've been in, it's been super conditional. And they essentially became my God, right? Like if they were having a good day, I was having a good day. If they were having a bad day, I was having a bad day. What they said to me was my worth, right? I put people on pedestals, and now actually looking at it, like in front of me, especially with relationships right now, it's all just been fear-based and like selfish. Getting into a relationship, like I never considered the other person. I was only considering what I thought I needed from that person. I never considered how my behaviors would change. Like, I don't know, like just my whole mindset getting into a relationship was like, you were my missing puzzle piece, now fix me, right? I am now complete, and that is how I live my life. So now being out of relationships and kind of putting my toe in with friendships, there's just a lot of fear. Like a lot of fear of my old behaviors coming up, which I don't have power over. And a big fear of mine is hurting other people too, right? Which I don't have power over. But so there's a lot of just like boop, 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 boop. It just goes in my head, and essentially I just stay frozen without taking action into new group activities, gatherings. Like this is more of a safe zone, because there's a focus, there's a different focus than actually getting to know me. Yeah, that's what's really important in relationships.
Well, you're pretty courageous right now.
Yeah.
Thank you. So imagine that what I said in the beginning was true, that there's, you know, being in the moment, being connected, being having a relationship with the moment, or with higher power, or God as we understand him or don't understand him, or that was the aim. That was the ultimate, you know, if we could live that, everything else would fall into place. You know, there wouldn't even be any consider of everything else. Actually, we just know that it would drop into place. It's a reasonably high ideal, but what's come up is that every piece of that, the expectation, the fear, the selfishness, you know, all of those pieces that you've identified are all we can use as signposts into the moment. So when it's there, and what my experience has been is that the more we do that, the easier it gets. You know, with fear. With fear, you know, we bring consciousness or light or love or God as we don't understand him or understand him into that fear. It melts, right? You know, it's in the moment. It's like, oh, it's gone, and so all of this, relationships are so great. You know, the idea, our old concept of relationships are so great because everything there can bring us into relationship with this higher power. You know, gosh, I'm tired of saying 6 things to describe every, you know, but you know what I mean. So I'm going to call it the now.
Okay.
You know, but it includes everything, and not. I think that many of us hold on to a particular concept or belief really tightly, So, and if that's the case, if somebody's watching or somebody's here that has a particular concept that you are really attached to, well, feel free. We'll maybe get to another day into that idea of even surrendering that, but that's another for another day. So, what an opportunity to really expand in that arena, isn't it? Yeah, yeah, and it can be so mucky, it's like holy shit, because a lot of it is confusing, and we have a lot of beliefs around, what we think should happen. Yeah. So you're not relating right now?
No.
Okay. Awesome.
Absolutely
Absolutely. So I want to, what I'd like to do is give everybody, not that I can do this, but I'll do it for fun, permission to play this year. We're going to, it's like a 1-year experiment, to go up and talk to that guy at the coffee shop, just to risk, and yeah, with no intention, without an agenda, and watch the mind movies. Gosh, if I talk to him, he's going to want my number. If I give him my number, he's going to call. Right? He's probably married, but he'll have to get divorced. Then we're going to have 3 kids, and it all right. It runs out, and they're thinking, well, hell, I'm not even going to talk to him, and we've already run the whole scenario. So watch that. It's a possibility to know that we don't know. We don't know nothing. The truth is that his sister may be a recovering addict that needs our help. And we just don't know anything. And so if the intuition comes to speak to somebody or to be of service, or because for the most part, for some of us, our life has become based on service. How can I help? Show me where I can serve. And yeah, but I'm not going to, no, not there. I'm not going to tell you. No, right? Yeah. I'm not going to talk to him or her or wherever our preferences are, because. And so, yeah, let's have a year of experience, of yes, of seeing and recognizing that it's just that. I'm sorry. Not really. What's up?
I just really want to say, I noticed last year of being pretty disciplined with my meditation routine.
Yes.
That it has definitely strengthened my connection with the divine. In turn, it has lessened my expectation and hurt and disappointment, everything with relationships. Because I think that I've made a more solid one with myself, which was really needed. And then now I kind of feel, instead of anxiety about finding, my life partner, because I had a failed marriage and blah, 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 I feel more grounded now that anything honestly would be icing on the cake, because it's filled it. And then I think that's when it'll come naturally, when we stop having to seek it for all these other reasons, right? So.
Can I just jump in there on something? Imagine a failed marriage. Because we do, eh? We're like, oh, and I love telling people I had 2 very successful marriages, and they were short, but they were they were very successful. They were.
Everything happens for a reason. We have a beautiful son.
Yes.
But it's that
Yeah.
stigma. Like now,
Yeah.
I'm just turned 40.
Well,
I'm alone.
oh my gosh, I wasn't speaking of you. Yeah.
But it really resonated because
Yeah.
it is a pressure. It was a psychological thing.
Oh yeah, oh my gosh.
40 and I didn't remarry.
I'm here to tell you that the best years are yet to come.
No, I believe that.
Yes.
And I'm grateful for every day, I really am. And like we all, I think in this community, grass is just a number. It's a timeless illusion itself. But society has, you just see that coming so much the programming, right?
Yes.
And the judgment and the shame and the guilt and the...
Yeah, imagine. So there's no way to therapy our way through it.
No.
Have you ever had therapy?
Yeah.
I knew you had. I'm just kidding. Because we think that we can, if we go to enough therapy, that we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I never really did think that, but...
You never thought that?
No.
No. Well, a lot of folks do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's what we're doing here is I recognize that as we move into surrendering those things, and there's a lot of them. Yes, and eventually though the story just falls away. Mm-hmm. The underpinnings move, and there are some major shoulds and shouldn't that we have in our life, and they start to fall away, and then the rest of it just starts to topple, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm free. Yeah. And an exciting possibility, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Especially when you see it actually, you feel it. You don't see it, but you feel it happening on a daily basis, and it gets stronger. Mm-hmm. And it's very tangible.
Mm-hmm. Part of we do, like yesterday we had potluck at our home, and it's so that people can come and connect and risk and be a bit uncomfortable and meet new people and to play. The thing that we're going to do on the 21st of March is 12 hours of uncomfortableness. So you better all ante up quick, because people.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was 12 hours.
We're going to go 10 to 10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the thought, and we're going to turn our cell phones in. What do you think of that? I mean, who here feels they're maybe addicted to their cell phone?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went this spring or this fall and did the Enlightenment Intensive. I've talked about it before with Trevor, and it was we went there on Thursday night, and the first thing they did is they took away my cell phone and my keys. And my keys, and they said, you can have them back, but you'll have to ask. And so there was no escaping in the middle of the night. And so cell phone and the keys, I willingly turned them in. And it was Thursday night till Monday noon, and 16 hours a day of the work that we did, the Enlightenment Intensive dyads, the sitting asking the question, tell me who you are, and watching it all fall away. And letting go of, and we brought no books, no notepads, we just were there in the moment, and it was really great. So yeah, we're going to do that. And I know this is kind of an aside, but on that day there will be an emergency number in case your kids can't find peanut butter or whatever, and they've got to call and ask, just. Look, the whole thing, just to let your phone go for a day, is might be worth the whole thing. Just like, wow, to turn it in, and we'll have a little suitcase. I went to an event with Distance and Cara last fall, and they had a beautiful suitcase, and everybody put their phones in the suitcase, and it was, yeah. And that may not work. Maybe nobody will come on that one. Anyway. But we are a bit strung out on our phones.
Usually when you're at an event like that, when I was at WUB, I forgot my phone existed. Right? I don't have it regardless, but it's awesome.
Nice. So, again, the whole thing around judgment of ourselves, a partner, judgment of, I'm 40 and just we're full of it, of judgments. And the whole idea of it, if we can use the judgment to bring us into the moment. So instead of going into it, to recognize it, to have enough consciousness in the moment. And what we're trying to do is to develop consciousness so that we can see things as they're happening instead of being a victim of our thought patterns or our beliefs or our conditioning, to actually see it. Say, look at that. I'm judging. Was it last week we suggested this homework that we look at where we're judging? Oh, did I? It was homework. But we can do that when we go home this week. Just look at, think about, where are you in judgment? Where am I in judgment? And the thing around relationship is the biggest thing. Is anybody in an actual kind of a long-term committed relationship right now? In this room? A long-term committed relationship? Okay, yeah. Maybe. It's new, yeah. All right. Well, you guys don't count because you're still in the first 30 days or 60. Yeah, and it's too juicy to actually talk about when the first.
I'm committed to all relating.
Yes, of course. You don't count. Just stop.
I'm really trying to do the daily
Yeah.
checking in and not. And I had the luxury of spending most of my 40s adamantly single and getting really okay with me, just me. And so the need for something to be in or out is not there.
Well, part of the freedom in relating going forward is if there's any residual that bugger fucked me around, any of that, it comes forward. So there's the possibility to look at our past relationships and see where we were, where we allowed ourselves to be victim, or we allowed ourselves to not that there's any such thing, but we allowed ourselves to imagine ourselves as a victim, and recognize that was our belief. We had expectations. We thought things were going to be a certain way, and we were living in a vision of it as opposed to the possibility of living moment to moment. So that's how I envision the idea now. So it kind of makes it difficult though, because if you really have this idea that you're going to be with somebody unconditionally, that means unconditionally. What would it be like to be in a relating with somebody unconditionally? No, he doesn't have to call. There's maybe some practical things, but just really unconditionally. And if we had an ideal of a relationship, what would it be? And has anybody ever written out an ideal of a? Yes. It's part of the training, isn't it? Yeah. Yes. And interesting to look at it, though, if we did it with the context of unconditional. If we did it with the context of unconditional love. So nothing missing. And just, what would that look like if we were there without fear, not needing? Anyway. Did that bring anything up?
For me?
Yes.
Yes.
Care to share?
I did miss part of the conversation. Maybe Bronwyn wants to share. I don't know. When it comes to, I don't have a lot of experience with relationships. I'm of the 3 months you're gonna probably get to know who I am right about now, so I'm just gonna shut this down. That's been my pattern. There's been a lot of old ideas that have old beliefs that have prevented me from exploring things that might have been great. I have I can definitely tell you a lot of my ex-boyfriends are pretty well the same person. You know, I have a certain, and you know, like I would go for people who were unavailable to me, because that way it's not going to work out. It's not going to be my fault, and I don't really have to commit to this, like really, you know. And so being at this age, that's kind of sad that I've let a lot of those old ideas. I feel like I've missed out on some things. That doesn't mean that that can't change. There's definitely a different level of awareness today than there used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that continues to evolve. I like what JR said about, you know, being, I think, you know, at every age, like my 30s, now my 40s, it's a different time of development, and I have a clearer picture of what I am looking for and who I am. And I'm constantly having conversations with people around this, right?
It's interesting, though. I think it's hard to find a conversation that's honest and unconditional.
Yeah.
You know, how honest do we want to be?
Yeah.
If the basis, one of the pinnings, the underpinnings, the foundation of our life is I'm not good enough, or I'm unworthy for love, or unworthy of love, or unworthy, then that.
So it manifests.
Yes, and so we see that, but we can't kind of therapy our way past it, and if we can connect on a regular basis with Source, with the Now, with Divinity, then we actually lift into it's. And I most of that, from my experience, comes from our friend Dr. David Hawkins, and even though I didn't get to meet David, Adrian, did you meet him?
I didn't know.
But Hawkins said that as we in the book Letting Go, it was amazing. So we let go of the symptoms of those foundations of not good enough and not lovable, which to me are guilt and shame and fear and anger and desire. And so we let those go. We actually, like a cork, this is the magic of it, as like a cork, we're lifted up into courage and acceptance and joy and unconditional love. So we don't actually have to do anything. That's our natural state. That's who we are.
I like what you said about bringing love to it, because I can recognize when I'm in that thought frame, not good enough. And it's so, like my natural reaction is to shame myself for being there, which doesn't work.
No, that's right. So judging ourselves for...
Judging
yeah.
ourselves for being there.
Yes.
And when I start to have compassion for that part of me
Yes.
that adopted that,
Yeah.
that helps.
Yes.
But that's taking a while to get there.
So compassion is another facet of love, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Adrian, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, like, the other facet to, we all are quite familiar with the terminology around, I'm not feeling good enough. And then if you're bringing up, or since you're bringing up David Hawkins and letting go, David Hawkins said about letting go is to allow yourself to feel the negative feelings without fighting them, without rationalizing them, just sitting in them and let them play, rather than doing our usual escape mechanism or avoidance mechanism that we're so trained, to get away from them. Now, so that doesn't mean, for example, if I'm not feeling good enough, it's one thing to sit there and allowing myself to feel not good enough. That's one thing. But I think there's another side to this. The fear of feeling good enough.
So uncomfortable.
So, because the not good enough is a very comfortable feeling. So it's not actually necessarily a very challenging feeling for you, because it's your status quo. But now put yourself into the position of considering the possibility to be emotionally available, to feel these things and so on. And often that's when really strong fears come up. And then allowing yourself to feel that fear rather than immediately pushing away and going back to the comfortable, not good enough feeling. And there's this lady that used to say our greatest fear is to be something beyond. Yes.
This lady, she's an amazing lady, Marianne Williamson. She's running for president.
Yes, she did. So she said, and she showed literally that she means that saying.
Yes.
Because she faces it. She
What was
goes.
the saying?
Our biggest fear is not that we are inadequate, it's that we are powerful beyond measure.
That's right.
Which was maybe accredited to Nelson Mandela.
But he quoted her.
Yeah, did he quote her?
He quoted her.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's
And,
from
yeah.
her book of Return to Love.
And she's the Course in Miracles lady, which is, this all of this that we're talking about. Adrian, who just spoke, has spent years in this same search as I have, and so the deeper we go into the down the rabbit hole, the simpler in a way it gets. It's easy to get to try to want to figure it out, and the next nuance that Adrian was just talking about is that is it. We see that we're afraid to shine in a way, and so
Who do you think you are?
yes, yeah, and so if we bring divinity, this is the piece that I'm bringing to this, is that I cannot intellectualize myself out of it. I cannot talk myself out of it. I cannot manage my way out of my self-hatred, my fear. I cannot manage my way out of it. What's come to me is that my connection with God, and not to be confused with any particular religion, is what lifts me out of it. And the more the more I bring that into what Hawkins said, be in it. When I'm in it, I'm present. When I'm present, I'm connected to the now. And that is the power we're speaking of. So rather than saying, oh, I don't want to feel shame, I don't want to feel guilt, feel it. And then as that power shows, as I be in it, and that's consciousness, right? Consciousness is me being here now. And when I'm here now, I'm then connected. This idea of a religious, forgive me, because we're sitting in a church, but it's just another concept of connecting to divinity or the now. And when we connect to that, there's so much freedom right there. Yeah, but my mind wants me to figure it out, to make meaning, to intellectualize, to understand. Thank you. Yeah, I remember years ago when I was traveling with Paul, and Paul said, "Understanding is the booby prize." Yeah, because I would just hang on his words, and I'd be trying to figure out how to feel better about myself, how to, and I thought that if I felt worthy enough, life would reward me. And anyway, so that's, I think the possibilities, we can help each other over and over again to recognize, are you being conscious? Because sometimes what we say is, oh, don't feel that way. You're beautiful. Are you kidding? Look, you're a great mom. You're an amazing school teacher. You shouldn't feel that way. And we try to talk each other out of how we're feeling. And so even doing that is not really supportive. It feels supportive, doesn't it? It feels like, oh, well, they must love me. They said nice things about me. And yet it isn't. It doesn't give us No, it's not foundation. It's not bedrock. It's loose, and it's gravel, sand. Yeah, building our house on sand. I mean, a lot of the stories from the Bible were amazing about, you know, where they're going to build our house on rock. We're going to build our house on. It was a great parable. Does anybody recognize any Bible stories? Anyway, that's a Bible story.
I have lots of them, and they make more and more sense.
The work we're doing.
Now, the work that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because even in my relating now, is that we're building that foundation of honesty. And when I'm feeling fear, like we had a potluck and I was judging myself. I had a ton of judgment on myself. I was feeling guilt. I was feeling all these things.
Over the hat or the beard?
Over everything. Doesn't matter what it was about. I was having the feeling. So with the person that I'm relating with, I was able to tell her this is what I'm feeling right now. It had nothing to do with her, but she was actually allowed me to speak about it, talk about it, and let go of some of that emotion. And she didn't say anything. She just kind of stood there and looked at me.
Isn't that great?
And I was able to release all that and come to my own actual, self-actualization, and then just come to the present moment where that feeling just disappeared eventually.
Well, that's what it does.
Yeah.
And
so it's that honesty that if you can build a foundation with your partner, and they're not there to fix you, they're just there to be present and to be loved. And if I'm the same, that's unconditional, and you're just playing. And when you're in the moment, that's not.
So how unconditional do you want to be? That's the problem. How unconditional do you want to be?
Which we've stated quite a bit of things already into the intention, into the relating, so we haven't got to that part yet. We'll face that when we get there.
You know, because it's, you know, I just tell a short story around that. And has anybody ever felt jealousy? And you know, and isn't jealousy sometimes like the ugliest? Oh, it's so, you know, and so. Well, I'm not going to judge jealousy. I'm just going to share with you that let's not judge jealousy. It's just I've had it, you know, I've felt it, and I've been in it, and the trick with it was to just feel it, and not to, you know, my experience for me was to be angry or punch holes in the wall, or I mean, as a child in my 30s. You know, I used to express, you know, how could you, I thought you loved me, right? And so just to feel it, like Adrian said, just be in it. And boy, that's one of the, if we can move through that, there's freedom, you know, through those emotions, because I'm trapped. My hypothesis is that we're all trapped in a prison of our beliefs, and they all have emotion around them, and so freedom is through the emotion. Freedom is through the feeling. Freedom is through the consciousness, and even if it's and the more that we get to see things and become aware of them and have the language to talk about them, then the more we can bring consciousness or God or the now into those things, and they melt. And like, I'm not making up that as we be with those things, we float up. We do rise up into unconditional love, into bliss, and into higher states, so that we're not running around trying to organize a safe life. And based on our beliefs of what a safe life looks like, and as a result, I believe that we get sick, you know, and we separate, and it reflects in our body, and our reflects in our bank account. It reflects in our enjoyment for life, and so that's the game. is consciousness, and my experience over all these years is that there's no doctrine to be bought or sold here. There's just the possibility of being present, and in our presence, recognizing, and through our association this year, we'll develop language so that we can put words to the things that are happening inside of us. And many of you know that I'm involved in the 12-step world, and we have a step 10 that, where we go back over our day. And for many of us, we don't have the language to even look at what happened. All I could see for many years is, if I was dishonest to somebody else, or, my relationships with somebody else, but I wasn't really looking at me. I was looking at my behaviors, and so in that idea of looking through my day, can I look at where was I? Well, I guess it does say that. Where was I fearful? Where was I dishonest? Where was I, and to see where I was in judgment of myself and others, and then eventually it can be in the moment, and we can have that freedom that comes from being able to see as things lift up or come up. And I remember, can I just tell a story? My first group I did with Paul was back in the 90s, and it seems like I started on this path in the late 70s, and which dates me a little, and or even before in a way, but I started reading books in the 70s, and I was still active in addictions, but I was reading and trying to figure out what was going on. And even before that, I knew that there was something, James says we're all from another planet. I knew that somehow I must have got here from another planet. I'm kidding, but because I didn't fit, and it just, something seemed amiss, and so I remember being with with Paul, and Paul was the first one that introduced the real ideas about how honest did I want to be, that I got it. It was like, okay, if I saw somebody that I thought was that, when I felt the pull to go and talk to somebody, that I would do it. And I'd come back, and it was 94, and I'd just gotten back from Bali from a long group with Paul, and I was at an event, and there was this woman across the hall, or across the room from us. It was I used to hang out with Kelly Toby, who's this amazing teacher for years here in Calgary, and he had once a week afternoon things, and I thought I was attracted, and I didn't know what it was, because I thought up until that time all attractions were sexual. I did. I thought, oh, okay, and so I passed on lots of possibilities to meet people, because I was married, which I was, and so I started to realize that was a judgment. I had this judgment on myself that all attractions were sexual, so I couldn't go talk to somebody. And I remember going over to her that day and talking to her, and I asked her if she wanted to have a coffee, and I didn't know. I really didn't. And she said okay, and I remember we met at Cafe Beano shortly after that, and it became obvious almost immediately that there was something way more than us hooking up. And now, yesterday she came to the potluck, and we've been friends for 25 years, and we did cool stuff together. We traveled. We did, and we've never ever been partners in any other way than like good friends. And so we just don't know anything, and the things that came out of that, the relationships that she and I met other people, and we organized groups and did all kinds of things, and just, it was amazing, but it was moment to moment. So I just I think that one of the underpinnings of a new way of living, in my opinion, is that we don't know. the opposite from, wanting to be right or always judging is I don't know. And being in that moment of risk, when in following our intuition and following our ideas, and we, sometimes they'll be crazy as hell, but knowing that we don't know means we can be free. When folks come and talk to me and they're really certain about everything, I'm like, wow, it's a tight place to live, contracted in a way. And so, so I don't know anything. Yeah. Any thoughts anymore on anything like relating or?
What do you mean when you say in a relationship really unconditional? Like, what do you mean?
Oh, Adrian, do I have to?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So imagine, yes, okay. Imagine that that you and I loved each other, and that we lived together, and I really loved you, and it was unconditional, and you decided that you wanted to spend the evening with Dana.
Okay. Maybe let's say not that example.
Okay.
That one's just such a.
It's a bit cliche. It's okay.
No, I mean like beyond that, because unconditional is really big.
Yes.
It can't just be about that.
No, it can't. It can't just be about that. It's just that's kind of the one it's a pitfall for all of us. Okay.
What about other relationship stuff, or what do you mean like being really unconditional?
Well, James and I live together, and as roommates, but as unconditionally as we can around money and around food and around, we're there in an idea of serving, and so it really jumps from what's in it for me to how can I serve you, how can I be here for you, how can I not in a doormat way, but in a really loving way, but not keeping score.
Now I realize why I'm asking the question.
Okay.
You see, it sounds like a big condition, like a very, very big condition to be unconditional.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like how am I going to measure up to that when jealousy comes up, when sense of this is not right comes up, and then to kind of say, oh, I'm not unconditional. That seems like a really bloody big burden to me.
Well, I agree, and I can't actually tell you.
Nuance and unconditional.
Yep.
The unconditional openness. Honesty.
Yes.
Honesty.
That's what I was
Unconditional
sharing. If I can
honesty
share
Yep.
what I'm feeling.
about what's really up, not about what I would like to think to be up if I was spiritual enough to be in this relationship.
Yes. So, yes, and what?
Me and you
Yes.
we share our feelings with each other when we're upset or we're angry. Even when we're at each other, we talk about that.
Yes.
And that's communication, that's that conscious communication. So that's really opening a door for unconditional love in my mind.
Yeah.
Because I'm not afraid
Right.
that he's going to judge me, which is really just my own judgment because I'm afraid I'm going to judge myself if I share what I want to share with him.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm in bed, not with him, and and I text him, "Fuck, sorry about that." Or I was in my head, or I'm grumpy, or and so that goes on. We kind of clean it up on moment to moment, and it's pretty unconditional. I mean, I have stuff that comes up. My mind judges stuff, and I get to around money.
He shares that with me, and then I do the same, and share that I have similar thoughts, and then we recognize, wow, we're both the same.
But we didn't make a deal on this.
No.
It just
Happened.
We didn't say, okay, we're going to be roommates unconditionally. So
It sounds a lot more like unconditional.
yes, and so yes, it's hard to even talk about in a way because I've never really lived it. To be honest, I have, the area that I've lived it in is the one we just addressed, and where it was for me to go through all of that stuff, but and, you know, the jealousy and the fear and all of the self-worth stuff, because, you know, my conditioning was that I'm nobody if I don't have, I'm not in a relationship, and if I don't have a beautiful woman in my life, then there's something wrong with me, all of that stuff.
Well, that even comes up in our relation, like relating jealousy comes up for both of us, right? So I mean, it's no different from person to person, whoever you're relating with. It doesn't have to be sexual, it doesn't have to be anything. All of those same feelings are going to come up with whoever we're relating with. And if we can recognize that and be honest with whoever we're with, that's unconditional.
That to me sounds really open and really amazing, like, because
Makes me giddy, actually, to talk.
I also think it's important to recognize that we're not going to do it perfectly.
No. Oh,
So
no, he doesn't do it perfectly at all.
We're going to F this up all the time.
Yeah, but if, that's the honesty.
Being
Yeah,
honest about it.
yeah. And imagine having, and I just think that this is cool to have a crew, you know, and where we can have that intention to live as honestly as possible and talk about, what's happening. And like we have a chat place where we could do more than just send beautiful memes, you know, which we send. That's what we do. We send beautiful memes. Yeah.
I wanted to just touch on, because I'm glad that whole conversation unraveled, but that has been my problem for a long time, that I do find to have like a unique capability to unconditionally love, in the fact that I can forgive easily. I sense why people are doing what they've done or whatever, this thing I have going, but I do end up like the doormat. It's like you get taken advantage of so many times.
So can we back up just a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Why is there ever a need to forgive?
Well, because
Somebody.
a lot of my conditioning for sure.
So the idea that somebody
Because
did
that's
something
where
wrong.
letting go, is it not?
No, there's a place, I think, beyond forgiveness.
Because I always think I'm not forgiving them for what they did. I'm forgiving that it happened, like forgiving it, like just moving forward. Forgive, move forward. I'll say to my preschool students. Forgive, move
Well,
forward.
we can move from forgiveness to gratitude. I mean, yes, if we're in anger about something, or we feel like we've been wronged or hurt, to feel that, to be in it, to breathe it, breathe into it and feel it, and then if we're there, and we can lift up into a place beyond forgiveness to gratitude. Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
with forgiveness, like what I'm hearing too, is like, if you're quick and easy to forgive, maybe that is your problem. Maybe you're forgiving so quickly, so you don't really have to look how this is being created. You know, like I understand, like I forgive too, like, and I don't hold grudges, but sometimes I've come to, as like my reaction was not healthy to what happened.
So you're, Adrian,
That unhealthiness was actually more related to my fears around what would a healthy reaction look like, and who would I have to be to have this healthy reaction. I would have to be someone with boundaries. I would have to be someone who asks to be respected. I would have to be someone whose voice matters, and so on. And then you don't so easily become a doormat.
And then that's honesty again. So at the beginning, were you, or was I honest with whoever I was relating to
Right.
from the beginning? If I wasn't honest with them, of course I'm going to have something to forgive, because I'm going to create something that's going to come back at me and bite me in the ass.
so let's back up just for a second. Just back up for a second. The doormat may have always been there. So let's look at that and recognize that that's based in what, shame or guilt. Feel that, and if that's the default that comes up, you know, and like Adrian said, you know, also to feel the anger, you know, feel the disappointment, feel the sadness, and so we can move into forgiveness and then beyond, you know. So, but the default is to go maybe from whatever happened, the transgression, into the doormat. Oh, okay, I forgive. I know they didn't mean that. So we intellectualize it. We don't bring it into our being. And then we're just managing, and and it separates us from them, really.
I can relate a lot to you. I had this idea that it wasn't just, that whole turn the other cheek, turn the other cheek. It wasn't spiritual of me to, I should forgive right away, but really it was me avoiding any conflict and not setting a boundary because I was terrified of that. Because if I do that, are you going to leave me? That was a deeper fear, right? It was like, and then it goes into that, there's a belief of unworthiness, right? That if I assert myself, what then? It's just that deep-seated fear.
And sometimes,
More to it than just, I'm really quick to forgive. There's still a selfishness in it, for me. There's fear, a lot of fear.
so it doesn't have anything to do with the other person, really, does it?
No, it's all
Yeah.
fear.
Whoever they did, borrowed the lawnmower, didn't bring it back. Just kidding. But whatever the transgression, and the whole scenario that's been really nicely talked about is going on in us, and this is the stuff we want to play with and bring consciousness into, bring love and light into it for our healing, not for it's got nothing to do with anybody else. There is nobody else. Kathy?
So, all the stuff we're talking about and forgiveness, what I've learned in my life was key for me is there needs to be self-compassion in there. Self-compassion for myself was a critical part of moving past whatever was going on.
Sure.
And moving out of that place of pain, of feeling unworthy, feeling crappy. And it's a tough gig for a lot of us who have grown up without the tool on how to offer ourselves self-compassion.
So that the tools that you're saying, that's what we're going to go over again and again and again, so that we can be free. So that we can be free. Self-compassion is another way of saying love. Yes. Lucas, what's coming up for you?
I'm thinking a lot about 12-step stuff, actually, about like in my 6 and 7, when I'm trying to keep lust from masquerading as romance, as they say, or greed from masquerading as ambition. So that's what I'm hearing a lot. How can I keep bending over backwards from masquerading as forgiveness? What tools can I have to be aware of that sort of thing, I guess?
Wow. So yes, and let's create an arena where we can actually talk about and lean into these things, and come free. I know in 6 and 7, it's hard to even know what it is that we're looking for, and I had a tough time in my life with, the whole cliche, you have to love yourself. See, I just was not even on the horizon, and yet I didn't even know myself. I didn't have any concept of what was really going on in here. I was just a reaction for a lot of my life, and I was always looking outside of me to fill me up, and because I didn't know how to bring this connection into my life, to be part of really who I am, a spiritual being. I know that's a cliche in itself, but still, a love being, a light being, all of those things are who we are, and all the stuff that you just mentioned, is dense in a way. But again, the trick, like Adrian mentioned, is to not just to acknowledge and be aware and bring love and consciousness to that. And it does melt. And like fear, for me, has always been the father of the lie. Fear has always the father of the lie. I lie because I'm afraid that you won't love me. You know, that you'll leave me.
So it's okay, honey.
Hmm?
So it's okay, honey.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It could be, yeah, and yeah, and we learn to, you know, to take space, and
Somebody posted something.
mhm.
We're all so different, yet we're all the same.
Thank you. Who's that?
Rob Krista Lucas.
Hey, hey, Rob. Is your daughter watching? You didn't tell me her name. Do. Doug, anything coming up?
Well, what's on my mind tonight is just my ex-wife, who I have a great relationship with. After many years, we can kind of be in the same room together. But we have this 17-year-old daughter together, and hopefully she's not watching. But my ex has some very deep anger issues, and she, you know, you can't love anyone more unconditionally than you love your child, right? So how can you be angry with your child because she didn't eat fruit with her oatmeal, and then be mad at her all day? It's just been going through my mind, because why? She just hung up on the phone with me before I came in. Like, since I started meditating, my anger's gone way down, way down. And I'm trying to tell her, please meditate, please. Stop being so angry. Why do you want to be so angry? You're a little daughter that you love more than anything. You know? That's just where I am.
Yeah. So, you know, everything we said tonight, feel it. You know, recognize that we can only love each other. We can't change each other. And, you know, you're look at the work you're doing to bring love into that family. And just keep doing what you're doing. You know, and it's difficult sometimes not to make others wrong.
Not to make others wrong.
Yes. You know, to tell them they're doing it wrong. Just to love them. And
it's hard to not stand up for your daughter when your ex is being mean to her. Right?
well, that's interpretation. Just imagine that your daughter's life is exactly as it's supposed to be. That there is, you know, everything in each moment is being exactly as it needs to be, or it wouldn't be. So recognize that we don't know the lessons are coming, or we don't know the benefits that are in her relationship with her mother, and we do know that bringing love into it is bringing the moment into it, bringing divinity into it, bringing prayer into it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying she's a bad mom or anything. She's a great mom. She's done a great job.
Yeah.
You know,
What I see is that you're
anger.
struggling with it.
Well, yeah, I don't understand how somebody can be so angry with somebody that they love so much.
Well, it sounds to me like you were pretty angry just recently.
I was angry.
I can't understand. How could you be so angry? Yeah. I just love that you're here.
Thanks.
Yeah. Cool. Chris, we didn't hear from you.
This has been really good for me. It's that relationship stuff is, as you very well know, David, I'm going through some hard relationship stuff right now, and it's all coming to an end. But it's, I realize that it's, you know, a lot of it has been, there's been conditions from both sides, and we've been living in judgment on both sides, and that hasn't helped in this relationship. So the unconditional love, the way I look at it, is my 4-year-old daughter with a disability that doesn't know better, probably never going to have that, and I can do something not intentionally to harm her, and she's mad for 5 seconds, and then bring back to loving me and hugging me and you know, these scars and stuff on my face that I have are from my daughter because that's how she likes to show affection. So I've like decided, well, that's what I'm going to let her do because she is unconditioned. No matter what I do, she loves me for me, and there's no conditions on that. When I pick her up out of her bed every morning, there's a smile on her face, right? When she wakes up in the middle of the night, unless she's in distress, which is very rare, there's a smile on her face. That, to me, is unconditional love. She loves me because I'm her father, and, well, I don't actually know. She just loves me unconditionally. And my 6-year-old son, same thing, right? Perfect example, yesterday we were playing around. He jumped up, landed on the cat thing, fell over, of course, hit himself, and he was mad at me for a few minutes. It was all my fault, and I'm starting to learn that's the way things are. So I just let him be his and then 5 minutes later, we're in the truck going to the kids' play place, and we had a great day, right? They don't put judgment on us because they don't know better. Me, as we were talking about all these conditions and the way we've grown up and how society has made me believe and how I've been brought up and thought all this stuff, and I put on conditions on everything, right?
No, and you resent too?
I'm living in resentment huge right now. Well, I'm actually getting out of it, which is good. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm here for, and this is what I'm working on. This is to get past all that part because I don't need to put conditions on anything anymore in my life, right? I'm trying to just be, right? And this whole thing of this talking about, and this is where I'm at. I'm actually starting to get really comfortable with, because I've looked at a lot of relationships, same thing as hooking up, or what am I going to get out of this? Versus now I'm like, and I've always had that fear. So now I'm looking at this whole thing that's happening within the next couple of weeks of me moving out into my own place, and with my having a place for me and my children, is all allowing me to be and to find me. So there's I'm putting I'm not going to put a timeline on it, but I can tell you a relationship, like in that sense, is the least on my mind. Right? It is. It's 100% the least on my mind.
Oh.
I'm going to try. I'm going to let.
So relationship tonight was just used as an example because it's a great place to grow, and it's a great place for us to bring divinity into our life, to bring God or love into our life and into those, because it's so fraught with feeling. And so we'll probably talk about it a lot over the next year. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Yeah. We didn't hear.
Me?
Yes.
Frank.
Hi, Frank. Sorry.
Well, I'm not in a relationship right now, but I'm also not really looking, and I feel very. Much as it sounds cliche, I feel very at peace with my life situation and my relationship situation. I have a beautiful friendship with my ex. We met at the Pollock.
Mm-hmm.
I've started exploring polyamory last year and a half or so. Certainly my heart's open, but I'm not. I don't know. I'm not really, connected to anyone in a kind of in a love kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
Other than my ex, but she's also polyamorous. But at the same time, really my approach to life right now is simply just to build new connections, let that grow organically, and kind of see where that leads.
So is what we're talking about tonight, does that interest you or fit?
Absolutely, because certainly I have been in very strong and committed relationships, and I recognize within myself the things that I've done.
And you have feelings?
Definitely have feelings. I've been and overcome or tried to overcome some of the the things that I contributed to the way that those relationships fell apart. Some of the selfishness and the rumination and letting things build up and then blowing up, at the wrong moments.
Mm-hmm.
Fear of setting boundaries, definitely. We could go on and on.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I feel like I'm finally in my comfort zone.
Awesome. Hang on to the seat of your pants. I think that, there's an opportunity to go so deep and yet into such expanded space. And good for you. Thank you. Barbie, do you have anything to share with us?
I'm feeling really mature about how I feel about relationships compared to how I have in the past. I feel very grateful for my open mind about many things, and the blessings I receive now. I see so many people that are younger than me, and I see myself in them, in the same sex and in the opposite sex. And so with that open mind, it's just like you have many relationships, and every day I still don't know where it's going, but I'm not as twisted about that anymore. Like there was a point where I was a little twisted about it. I feel like calmness and
Nice.
and pretty damn happy about it.
Nice to have you back.
I know.
Are you going to come?
Yeah, you know what? I just
Hope you do.
I'm gonna just say some things. Life just handed me something, and sometimes you've gotta go, whoa, I didn't see that coming into my life like that. Why is it here? And just learn the lesson from that. I love my Mondays. They're fun.
Nice. Thanks.
Lots of gratitude for them.
So I just kind of recap a little bit, as we go forward. Who did we miss? Oh, yes.
I was trying to hide back it's really, really good to be here tonight, and I can relate to a little piece of everything that everyone said tonight. I'm 40 years old and going through a divorce and have a young son together, and I fucking hate my ex. I fucking hate him.
Awesome.
And it's so and I get mad at myself. I'm like, this does not feel good. This is not serene. This is not peaceful. This is not loving. This is not spiritual. And yeah, that's where I'm at. I've tried. When I was in my marriage, I tried to love him unconditionally, and I subjected myself to a lot of really unacceptable treatment for a long time because I could figure out why he was doing it. And this happened to him, so he does this and all that kind of stuff, And an idea that I've been playing with lately is that this idea of unconditional love, I think, is reserved for children. In all of my relationships, there are going to be conditions, whether they're my friendships or my partnerships or whatever that relationship looks like. There's going to be conditions to it, and those are the boundaries, and that is the self-respect, and that's the love, And I really like the idea of the connection between boundaries and compassion. I allow more room for compassion within me when I've got really strong boundaries for what's acceptable and what's not, And so those are kind of the ideas I'm playing with now, and tonight's given me a lot of food for thought, so thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. Do you know, when I suggest that the most important word in our life is yes, because I do suggest that the most important word in our life is yes, yes to the moment, yes to love, yes to, we can also be a yes to our no. And the trouble is that often we're a no first, because we're in fear. And so if we practice being available first, and it can always shift to, no, I guess that actually isn't who I am or what I want to be or what I want to do right now. I think yes, though, is we can have fun with going to yes first. And I hope you keep coming. It would be great to be in a place of free of that, And I'm sure, I know you're open to that. It's just, how is it going to come? And I believe it can come when we bring, you see, we want to kind of figure it out. And we can't figure this one out. You know, figuring it out keeps us in our intellect, keeps us in keeps us small, because we're trying to manage it on our own. And when we bring God or divinity or love into, I hate that son of a bitch, it has a chance to melt, you know, and has a chance to melt. And I think too, when we melt it, then the chances of us doing it again, you know, is probably the first guy you had that